What's up, everybody? UFC 297 is in the books, and in this video, I'm going to give my card breakdown, reaction, and analysis, and I'm going to point out a couple things moving forward, how the main event may impact UFC 300, but I just want to put this on the record first, guys, that men's MMA in Canada absolutely failed last night in their home country at UFC 297, and the reason I bring that up is we saw the two women show out, right? We saw Jasmine and Jillian get the job done. They balled out. They showed out. The men did not hold up their end of the bargain, right? Outside of Charles Jourdain, I thought a lot of the matchups that they had were kind of tailor-made matchups, great stylistic matchups for them to win in their home country and get the job done, and none of them got it done. The only pass I'll give is to Charles Jourdain because I believe that he had the toughest fight. I believe that Sean Woodson is a very hard stylistic matchup for most guys, right? I mean, the guy's 6'3" at featherweight, former boxer, has, really good boxing credentials. He's very awkward on the feet, but outside of that, just not a good turnout last night for men's MMA in Canada. But we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go in the video. But I want to get right to the main event. This was an absolutely sensational fight, and I picked DDP to win the fight. But I'm not going to sit here and gloat that I got the pick right because I believe Sean Strickland won the fight. I'm going to put up the significant strikes right here for you to take a look at. And I know people are going to say, but the takedown's a DDP. He landed the more significant shots. And, well, how can you say just because he has more power, he landed the more significant shots? Because the stats don't lie. They say otherwise. I believe that Sean Strickland's jab was the difference in the fight. In boxing, Sean Strickland would have won this fight. Getting the jab going, he absolutely, when have we ever seen DDP look like this after a fight, right? I mean, this was an incredible performance by Sean Strickland. It was a great performance by Dricus du Plessis as well, so shout out to him. Way to get the job done if you're DDP. What he's able to do, he's carrying South Africa on his back, first, champion out of South Africa. I mean, it's all incredible. He performed fantastic. I actually thought in the later rounds, his gas tank was maybe a little bit better than Strickland's. I think DDP, people are going to have to stop questioning this man's cardio and his gas tank because new mythical fighter, he's got the nose fixed. Cardio is not a problem for this guy. He looked outstanding. His power was on display. That's kind of what I was worried about for Strickland was the power difference because, guys, we knew coming into this matchup, Sean Strickland fights a little bit more hesitant when he's fighting guys with that power advantage. And ultimately, that's maybe what, swayed some of the judges is I know that we're going to sit here and say, but DDP got some takedowns. But what did he do with the takedowns, guys, right? I'm a big advocate for, I'm an MMA fan, and I'm willing to, acknowledge if someone is good on the ground. And yes, they took somebody down, but what did you do with the takedown? This is not collegiate wrestling. This is not, this isn't wrestling. This is a fight. And when you take someone down, what did you do with the takedown? How are you looking to enhance the fight? Are you looking to finish the fight? Are you looking for submissions? Are you raining down vicious ground and pound? Are you looking to advance positions and put the other guy in danger? DDP did not do that. So I don't value the takedowns as heavily as maybe some of the other, maybe one or two of the judges did that gave the decision to Dricus. However, DDP did land some really good body kicks. He did land some good kicks. However, Sean Strickland's kick defense, man, we have to start talking about this guy as one of the best leg kick checkers in all of MMA. I know Jan Blachowicz is a name that comes to mind for a lot of folks, but I mean, what Sean Strickland did last night, sensational. I think a lot of people that were expecting DDP to win really thought that this was going to be a finish, and people that thought Strickland was going to win, I think that they kind of expected the fight to look a little bit like this and play out similar to this, where Strickland's jab was money. He battered the eyes of DDP. I was actually kind of concerned there that maybe the doctor was going to come in and wave this off because he wasn't going to be able to see out of the one eye. We've seen that happen before. But guys, really amazing main event. I do believe that the UFC is going to try to book DDP versus Adesanya next. I don't like it for UFC 300, and I'm going to tell you why in a few here, but I want to finish up with the card. Now, outside of that, great performance by DDP. Thought it was a great fight. I had it rounds 1, 2, and 5 for Sean Strickland. But overall, can't really complain. Great main event. Co-main event, guys, absolute snooze fest. I know Bueno Silva all week was talking about how Raquel Pennington was, boring and falls asleep and this and that. Well, what did you do, Bueno Silva, to make this fight any more interesting? Dana White pointed out in his post-fight presser exactly my thoughts during the fight, which is Raquel Pennington needs to start listening to her damn corner, man. I don't know what is going on in her head. I know she won the belt, which is kind of a bad thing, right? Because she's not listening to her corner. She never is. She's never taking their advice. And she's going out there and she's kind of been back and forth with some fights, but she goes out there, wins the belt against an up-and-coming contender in Bueno Silva, to where now it kind of builds that thought process in your head like, well, I don't really need to listen to my corner because I won the belt. And it's like, yeah, true, but you could have probably have gotten a finish. And Raquel Pennington could have, in my opinion. You know, she was winning the striking exchanges. She was getting the better of the, the pocket exchanges. She had a clear power advantage. Her hands were much better than Bueno Silva. She had an advantage in that department, and for some reason was trying to engage in the clinch and push this fight up against the fence and entertaining the grappling with Bueno Silva, which we saw Pennington at times earlier in the fight just in some danger with some of the chokes that Bueno Silva's looking for. And I'm like, why are you putting yourself in that position if you're Raquel Pennington when you are clearly the better striker at this point, which kind of surprised me, right? I knew Pennington had good pop in her hands, but I didn't expect Bueno Silva to look, I don't want to say as bad as she did on the feet, but I expected a little bit more from Bueno Silva. I think she was feeling the moment a little bit. Shout out to Raquel Pennington to get the job done, but didn't do anyone any favors there. That was a very boring co-main event. Thank God the main event was great, because the co-main event, honestly, I was nodding off. It was putting me to sleep. But moving on, let's talk about Mike Malott, guys. This is one of the most detrimental losses that Canada MMA has ever experienced on the men's side. And I know people are going to say, hey, man, you're overreacting and you're being dramatic. I'm not. Because the UFC has been desperate, guys, for someone outside of George St. Pierre to step up in the men's department for Canada MMA, and they have not had that happen. And I think that they were very hopeful. I made a video that I'll link down in the description where I was discussing Mike Malott and what this fight meant coming into this matchup here against Neil Magny, which is Neil Magny has that number 13 ranking next to his name. He has not looked particularly great. Now, granted, Magny has fought some really good fighters, but he's kind of been that kind of gatekeeper role is kind of what I think the UFC was using him for. And Dana pushed it at the, in the post-fight presser. Oh, this was a big test for Mike Malott, and he was going to be tested in his hometown. Like, I know we expected Mike Malott to be tested, but we expected Mike Malott to win this fight. Mike Malott needed to go out there. The UFC set him up. Couldn't have set him up any better than what they did. They gave him a ranked opponent in his hometown on the main card, all the spotlight on him, and he could not get the job done. The guy's 32 years old, guys. He's the same age, if not older, than Max Holloway right now. He has not had a lot of fights in the UFC, and I know people are going to be like, oh, he'll be back, he'll be back. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. It's not to say that you can't have a resurgence as you go. But with Mike Malott's fighting style and what Canada MMA has been with GSP and wanting that next big star, this is a big fall. This is a big flop by Mike Malott, guys. It's a huge flop. It's a big disappointment. I thought he was going to go in there and get the job done. Now, granted, he was dominating the fight. He was absolutely having his way with Neil Magny. He took a page out of the book of Ian Gary. He was doing a great job, but you got to get, you can't gas out, man. Like, I understand that it's in your hometown and all the nerves and, the adrenaline, but this is such a crucial moment. He gasses out. Neil Magny gets a finish, and now Neil Magny knocks off the, you know what I mean? Like, this is not good. The UFC did not want this. They're going to kind of pitch it as, oh, it's a big test for Mike Malott. They set this up for Malott perfectly to get it done. He didn't do his part, and now I don't know what the UFC does. That's going to be for them to solve, because, guys, when we look at this, Canada MMA in the men's department, 0-7 last night. 0-7 in your home country. Absolutely. I mean, that's so embarrassing. That's terrible. And they gave them very, very favorable matchups. To the only exception I will hand out last night is Charles Jourdain, because he was in there against a very awkward and odd opponent in Sean Woodson, who's been very good since he's been in the UFC, right? I mean, when do you see a featherweight that's 6'3", has outstanding boxing credentials, that's able to switch stances, his takedown defense is improved? I thought Charles Jourdain would have a little bit more success. Maybe he was going to be able to pull off a finish, but I was leaning toward Woodson in this matchup because I figured it was going to be a striking battle. And I think the UFC was hoping, like, we know Jourdain's, he's an exceptional striker. He's got good power. Maybe this is a good matchup for him, but, that could have went either way. So I give him a pass. But everyone else, I mean, come on, man. Like, seriously, I mean, that's the UFC gave these matchups for you coming back to Canada, which they're trying to do more often. We've heard Dana say this, and you guys are not helping the UFC out. They're setting you up. I mean, Brad Katona is going to be in and out of the UFC faster than, I mean, he is going to be, he had his stint with the UFC, right? I mean, he comes in, he doesn't have a bad record. The guy's got a good record, but he was boring. He's winning boring decisions, losing boring decisions, and here we are again with Brad Katona. He's going to be in and out, man, and he's going to find himself outside the UFC again. Didn't do himself any favors. Armfield, give credit to him. He's a good fighter. He's got a good right hand. He's got pretty good hands. That was a fight Brad Katona should have won, in my opinion. It was a very winnable matchup. He didn't get the job done. The list goes on and on. Big disappointment by men's MMA in Canada. I'm not saying throw in the towel for them, but it was like, that was the point of this event, was to build guys up. That's why they put Malott on the main card in the spot that they did. That's why they gave him Magny. It's why they gave these guys favorable matchups. I mean, you could argue about some of the matchups being favorable because maybe they weren't. But instead of being all negative, I'm going to hop into, as well as Jasmine and Jillian getting the job done, showing out for women's MMA in Canada. Two impressive performances. I mean, we don't need to speak too much about Jasmine and what she was able to do. I mean, that was sensational. I mean, Jillian Roberts, I mean, she's been around for so long. Just really good for them, because Canada needs hope, man. The UFC's planning to bring these events to Vancouver, to Toronto. They're planning on doing those types of things. And the UFC's going to put the fighters in positions. That's what they do. When they go to Brazil, they give you these matchups, and it's like, they give Jalton Almeida, Derek Lewis, and it's like, it's not an easy fight, but it's a fight you should win. And Almeida goes out there, he does his job, puts himself in position for a big matchup now with Curtis Blaydes, or for Curtis Blaydes at UFC 299. Like, that's how the UFC operates. And when you build a card in Canada, which they don't go too often, and they all go out there and flop, it's just not good. But in the women's department, great job by Jasmine, great job by Jillian. They got the job done. I'm happy for them. They had, they did a great job, great performances. So there is a bright spot there. But in the men's department, man, it's a shame. It's a shame, and I want to hear what you all think. Like this video, comment below what you thought of this card. Overall, if I had to grade this card, I give it a 6 out of 10. I thought that, obviously, on the main event, the main card opening up, Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evlev, however you say it, Movsar, 18-0 now, Evloev. But anyway, I just don't understand why everyone's saying that was such a boring fight. I think that was actually a pretty good fight. We could talk about the knees. I don't believe that those are illegal knees. We heard Dominic Cruz on the broadcast. If you're reaching down trying to touch the canvas to avoid being kneed in the head, that shouldn't be allowed. That's not a downed opponent. You're trying to make yourself a downed opponent. They need to eliminate that rule. They need to figure that out. I thought that was a bad job by Mark Goddard to separate that there, because people are going to say, but his hand was down. Yeah, but his knee wasn't down. And how are we going to say that when the hand is down, you're not supposed to be getting kneed into oblivion? Like, you're trying to make yourself a downed opponent and find a way out of taking those knees. Like, I don't agree with that. In one championship, he would have been getting kneed into oblivion. We've seen that happen in one championship. Guys, it's an MMA fight. Like, I don't know how you draw the line at that. I don't get it. And overall, Arnold Allen, really good performance on his end. I thought he fought a really good fight. I thought that his movement was good. He did get clipped by Movsar. Movsar's a great fighter, man. He's a contender. However, he's boring. He's boring. People aren't really going to be tuning in to see him fight, in my opinion. I know he's got his fan base and his following. He's up over 1 million now on Instagram. So, there are people that want to see this guy fight. Didn't do himself any favors last night. Boring decisions. Don't get people to tune in. And I know not every fight's going to be a finish. And especially when you're at the top of the heap fighting really good fighters like an Arnold Allen. But Movsar's like, I'm fighting for the belt next. The hell you aren't. You are not fighting for the belt next. You're going to have UFC, Dana White after that, in his post-fight presser, everything I heard there, you're going to need another win before we can even think about giving you a title shot, because I believe Ilia Topuria, if he's able to get his hands on the belt, smokes Movsar. I think that Ilia is the perfect exterminator to get Movsar out of the top of the contention in the featherweight division, but that's debatable. Feel free to comment your opinion below. And last but not least, UFC 300. I know that the UFC, people are going to be quick to say, well, Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya should run this thing at UFC 300. I hate that idea, guys. I hate the idea, and the reason being, DDP didn't come out of that fight clean, man. He took a lot of damage. His face is battered. I bet his shins are screaming this morning after the amount of kicks that Sean Strickland checked. And a lot of those also hit the elbows and forearms of Sean Strickland. He's going to be banged up, man. And we're talking, it's January 21st, the day of this video. We're talking February, March, April, less than 3 months. And you're expecting DDP to come off this win, all the injuries that, as banged up as he is, fly back to South Africa, dial back in basically for a camp immediately to go in there and take on Israel Adesanya. If I'm DDP, I'm not doing that. I've said this before. I said this on my most recent live, that I think DDP, whoever won out of Strickland and DDP, should be like, I'm not fighting at UFC 300 because it was going to be a quick turnaround. I'm not fighting on what Adesanya wants in his terms. We're going to fight on my terms because I'm the champion now. But at the end of the day, money talks. So if the UFC is like, hey man, we'll give you some racks here to make this thing happen, like, of course you're going to make the fight happen. But it's a lot to ask of DDP to make a quick turnaround. That was not an easy fight. That was a war, guys. He took a lot of damage in that fight. And then he also, everyone's like, oh, but he landed some kicks. But yeah, Sean Strickland checked a lot of those. DDP's shins are going to be battered, man. And you're going to have to ice up. That's going to take, at least a week, 2 weeks to heal from that. And then you're hopping right back into another camp to get ready for one of the greatest middleweights we've ever seen in Israel Adesanya. But I want to hear what you all think. Like this video, comment your opinion below. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel, help your boy out. See you next time.